Good morning, I'm going to call this session of Board of Revision to order. I'd like to be...
Oh, sorry, Matthew's not here.
Oh. Good morning, I'm going to call this session of the Board of Revision to order. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. With me is Mr. Robert Buss, farthest to my left. Next to me is Ms. Linda McFadden. My name is Harvey Diamond. Our assessor is Matthew Barakis, and our administrative assistant is Kara Balshaw. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment rules in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision have been requested are described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that applicants or the assessor may make at this hearing must be sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to any matter must be sworn in. Please be advised that we do not accept comparative assessments of properties as evidenced by our board. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by council as independent of it and the city administration. We make our decisions on the basis of the evidence that we hear at these hearings and issue written orders that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible thereafter. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Inspection if the matter pertains to an application for exemption from taxation. Should a party wish to appeal, the information how to do so will be included with our order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following swearing in. We'll then have the assessor's testimony followed by those of the applicant, and then the applicant's testimony followed by any questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish to do so. Once all the evidence on an application is brought forward, the applicant may leave. The person will repeat for each matter on the docket, and after all the applicants are heard, we will close this hearing, we'll deliver in private, and render a decision as soon as possible, which, as I said, will be sent by written mail as soon as possible thereafter. The information here today will be live streamed and recorded and form part of a public record. Thank you.
Do you swear in or? Please state your name.
Matthew Stephen Brokus.
Do you affirm the evidence you present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state your name.
Jamie Ricker.
Do you swear the evidence you present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Please state your name.
Rock is a
Do you affirm the evidence you present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
First matter is 265 Portage Avenue.
Okay, so this place here, it's Res AM 265 Portage, roll number 13096158700. Built 1904, 1906, effective year built 1995, 1999. 75 suites, 37 indoor parking stalls, 0 outdoor parking stalls, according to our record. With this property, we spoke with the applicant ahead of time in regards to what was under appeal. It was in regards to the Class Code 60 section. Commercial space located on the main floor, occupied by Manitoba Start. Manitoba Start is a not-for-profit organization that provides work and language skills in the classroom setting to immigrants and refugees to meet the needs of Manitoba employers. The place is, we originally had it classified as Class Code 60. We inspected the place yesterday with the applicant and reviewing the notes from the inspection and also the applicant's brief. The city is making a recommendation to revise the class code for the commercial section from class code 60 to class code 40S.
Okay.
And I believe that's all that the applicant is seeking today, at least according to what their brief was indicating.
You didn't file for value, did we?
You did.
Oh, can we withdraw that right now then? Just make sure it's not an issue?
And liability to taxation, I guess, goes with the class code.
That's correct.
Yes. So that's fine?
Yes, we are in agreement with the recommendation.
Okay, that's basically inspections and the city's information of what exactly is taking place at the site.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions, panel members? Any questions? Okay,
Okay, thanks very much.
thank you.
I'm just gonna go grab a withdrawal form.
Okay. Thank you. No problem.
Tell these people don't file.
All right, so you just sign off?
Yeah, I just wanna get it done here.
Oh, okay.
Just make
That
sure.
would be his line.
It's loose ends.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes. Stuff's like to feel their own fault down there.
Ricky, you can leave if you're.
I guess that's it for me.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you. Have a good morning.
You too.
With your leather pants?
That's going a little too far. I think that sends the wrong message.
Well, objective could too, but now that we know the purpose for it.
So I got the appropriate down, so just have it withdraw the value. Okay, the rest.
29th?
Yes, it is. Okay. Thank
Great.
you.
Thanks.
So next, then, I guess your matters are now before.
I always worry when
Do you affirm?
I always worry.
Please state your name.
Chris Dirks.
Do you affirm the evidence you'll present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
Yes,
please.
Thank you.
Speak to it. Okay, I guess the next matter then is 1800 Portage Avenue.
So, 1800 Portage Avenue, roll number 07021286-000. 2019, reference date is April 1st, 2016. Assessed value $745,000. Res app, 2-story, building 51. 11 suites, 6 outdoor parking spots. Construction class D, wood or steel frame exterior walls. Turn to page 2, you see that they're compliant with their request for information. Page 3 is the income value summary for this property. The city's using an average monthly rent of $685.54 on it, for a gross potential rent of $90,491, with a 53.4% expense ratio, comes out with a net operating income of $40,988, capped at 5.5 as per age and area. You get your estimated market value of $745,000. If you go to page 4, these are the comparables in the area. All for Portage, they're similar in terms of year built, total number of units. They all have more one-bedroom units, other than the last one, than any other kind of unit type. And their gross floor areas are similar to that of the subject property. The average monthly rent of the subject property is bracketed by the sales comparables for this one. Page 5 is our capitalization rate chart. That's the proof provided. And then we have, following the computer-generated mailer, we've got some mailers. We got a mailer from 2015 for the property on pages 7 to 10. Now, if you go to page 12, starting at page 12, I Googled the property to see its condition. This property did sell recently, post-reference though. If you flip to page 13, where it says features overview, under features is updated kitchen cabinets, updated bathrooms, windows and blinds. So it would indicate that this place has had some work done to it. Kitchen, bathroom, windows would be something that would be considered significant. So I looked further into trying to ascertain when these renovations took place. There were no permits taken out for any sort of renovation, so what I was able to do, I'm not going to speak to numbers directly because it is post-reference, but the 2017 levels of monthly rent are roughly 20% higher than the 2015 levels of monthly rent. So this place definitely warrants an inspection on it. So in my opinion, the 2015 mailer that is included on page 7 of my brief isn't indicative of the actual current physical condition of the property that we're talking about today. And because we're talking about current condition with a post-dated reference date, I would ask that the board just maintains the assessment as is. I'm just gonna get a supplementary notice sent out on it anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dirksen, do you have any questions of the assessor? You can ask them now.
Just one question, and this will relate to all the properties we discussed today, but I'll ask it in specifically to this property. To date, you're providing a summary of the city's cap rate and information on how they were derived, but you're not providing any specific cap rate evidence, is that correct?
No sales specifically.
That's all my questions.
Okay, thank you. Ms. McFadden, do you have any questions of the assessor?
I don't have any questions.
Mr. Butch, do you have any questions?
Yes. Normally, would an owner be required to take out a permit to redo the kitchens and bathrooms?
Depends on the extent of the work. But, I mean, what falls under cosmetic and falls under something that needs to be inspected by an electrical or plumbing inspector. I mean, I don't have the greatest knowledge of that. The fact is that it has been renovated, and it looks like they got an RTV bump from it. Like a rental exemption.
Oh, I see, yes, okay. Whereabouts is this building, 1800 Portage Avenue?
It's on the corner of Portage and Borkville. River Oak is the other street nearby, just west of Caniston. I'm just reading off Altus's.
Okay. That's all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. Thank you very much. We're here to hear evidence on this, Mr. Houston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So 1800 Portage, if we turn to page 1 of the brief, we can see a photo of the subject property, as well as our request, which is to reduce the assessed value from $745,000 to $476,000. Page 2 shows the location of the subject property, which was just discussed, corner of Portage Avenue and Borkville Drive, just west of Keniston. From here, we can turn straight to the last page of the brief, page 13. So we've utilized actual income and expenses. The effective gross income, the actuals, we're using 2015, which is $88,909, which is very close to what the assessment department is applying for income. For the expenses, we've stabilized between 2013 and 15. We've left out some outliers in a couple cases. Repair and maintenance, you can see in 2014, was significant, 30,000, so we've averaged out 2013 and 15 in those cases. So we've stabilized over the years to get total expenses of 60,353, resulting in a net operating income of 28,556. The city is applying a cap rate of 5.5%, which was discussed. We're applying a cap rate of 6%, which is what our Altus cap rate study indicates. The Altus cap rate study is included as an appendix as well. But that's what the Altus cap rate study indicates is appropriate for a property built in 1951, and it's a low-rise building, 3 stories. Referring to upgrades, renovations, he didn't speak to any specifics because it is post-reference, but I asked that we do not consider those comments because they are post-reference, and that will be reflected in the supplementary at a later date. But that can be addressed later with the supplementary pertaining to the 2019, and all that information was post-reference, so I ask that you do not consider that. So as a result, we are, as mentioned, we are asking the board reduce the assessed value to $476,000, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Ms. Barakas, any questions of the applicant?
So, like, flip around to the back part where you have your breakdown here.
Okay.
So, you look at line 28, you got caretaking at this place. Caretaking is taking up just about half of the total expenses and 31% of the effective gross income. Would you consider this to be a typical market percentage of what most properties, percent-wise allocate their caretaker expense?
So specifically to that, also considering the repair and maintenance, which is the row above that, that results in a R&M of $299 per unit. We don't have the breakdown, but we assume that a portion of that caretaking wages and benefits could be applied to the repair and maintenance. We feel some of those expenses from there could have been carried into repair and maintenance. So that's why we feel those numbers are higher than perhaps maybe market, but repair and maintenance is definitely lower than market, so we feel some of those could definitely be carried over into that.
So it's 28,103. Do any of the properties in the Altus cap rate study have repair and maintenance that's around 30% of their total effective gross income? I guess I could check that. Looks like they're like 5 and under. Would you consider these properties to be operating at a market level in terms of caretaker expenses?
Sorry, 5.
Oh, sorry, like the level of percent-wise, how much the caretaking expense is reflected of the effective gross income? It just, there's like a column beside it that says how much it is.
Which page are you referring to?
Oh, just on the Altus cap rate study, you have the breakdowns.
Okay.
Sorry, on page, beginning on page, well, I guess it would be page 6, right after the preamble.
So your question is?
Do any of them have caretaking that's even in excess of 10%?
No, but again, I feel like I answered that question previously.
So this property, was it purchased for renovation?
I am not aware if it was purchased for renovation.
If someone was to purchase a property with the plans to renovate, would they take into consideration, would they put a lot of weight on the current net operating income in formulating their sale price if they plan to do an excessive renovation?
Would they, you're asking if they would put a lot of focus on the current NOI?
Yeah.
The purchase in this case was post-references, so we're not dealing with the purchase of this.
Okay.
This was the, as of April 1st, 2016, this was the NOI.
Just like in general, for the, just applying that question to the Judith cap rate sales. This will go for all the properties, the cap rate questions. So a few of them got, like for instance, Stafford was renoed a bit and then purchased and then renoed again. Should there be some weight taken off of that net operating income if there's gonna be more renovations to come?
Should there be less weight placed on current NOI if
NOI
renovations?
at the time of purchase if someone was planning to fix it up some more.
Of course, the investors would consider potential NOI in the case, but in this case, as of, we're not, that's all speculative too, so we're dealing with as of April 1st, 2016. We can't speculate. That same theory could apply to all properties then. You could look at any property and say if someone was to renovate it, would they you have to consider the actual NOI as of.
Those are my questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fan, do you have any questions of the applicant?
Yeah, just to go back to what the assessor was asking, if you combine repair and, we are arguing that if you combine repair and maintenance and caretaking, that it's not exceedingly high, it's 36%, but going back to the cap rate study, in fact, most of those apartments, when you combine both of them, are under 12. I think the highest one is 111%. So I guess the question is, do you feel that this expense is extremely high for this?
So you're saying combining the wages and benefits and
That
repair and
was the
maintenance?
argument that you made, I thought,
Correct, I feel
right?
some of that carries over, correct.
Okay, so if you combine the two of them, it's 36% of all of the expenses, or close to 36%.
It is an older property as well, so I think, and some of these in the cap rate study are in different condition than the subject property is, so I feel that their repair and maintenance in a lot of these examples would be lower than the subject.
Okay, thank you. That's all my question.
Mr. Buss, any questions of the applicant?
Did you inspect the property?
We did not inspect the property.
Talk to the owner?
We, not as of recent, not personally.
So I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but although we're looking at April 1st, 2016 for the reference date, we're looking at the physical condition of the property today, as of today, correct? Is that
Correct.
So the assessor's saying there's been some repairs done. I see on your page 13 that the repair and maintenance goes from $2,156 per suite in 2013 to $30,508 so per suite. So there was a lot of money spent.
That's not per suite, actually.
It's not per suite?
For the
That's not-
building.
That's
That's
for the
for the
whole
building,
building.
oh, okay. Okay, so you don't, if the assessor says the building has been undergone repairs and maintenance, updating for its physical condition, are you disputing that, or?
We're not aware of the current condition or the renovations. We haven't inspected the property. We try to avoid major capital expenditures in our annual income expense calculations, so we stabilize that out in this case. I can't speak to the extent of renovations, because we're not aware. This is all the information we had.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, that's all my questions.
Thank you. So I take it the reason why your application is taking place this year is because there wasn't an application last year because there's a new owner and the previous owner didn't make an application?
Correct.
For this-
We didn't
for this
represent,
cycle.
we didn't represent the.
I understand. But you did take into account when you tried to do your write-up, the information was provided by the previous owner, insofar as financials are concerned, the information sheets that they supplied.
Income and expense questionnaires, some of those would have been from the previous owner.
Because I see your workup, you've gone back to 2013.
Correct,
And that would be the previous owner's
correct.
work. Now, I find it haphazard, I'm looking at it, and I think it's very unusual, for example, to see repairs going from a low of 2,156 to 30,000 to 4 to 12. But what is even more troubling
Sorry,
is.
12 is the, 12, I just wanted to point out 12
Yeah.
is, it doesn't go up to 12, that's just the average.
Okay, so your average, okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
But what's more troubling is the wages and benefits for caretaking, from going from 18 to 28 to 37, back to 28. Like that's,
that fluctuation.
that fluctuation doesn't look suspect, because you don't pay caretakers more and that much more. Usually it's a contract type of thing, usually it includes part of the rent and maybe a few dollars on the side, maybe, but. So I'm just saying, I think you're basing all your calculations on probably very suspect data.
So we did average so that 28,192, that wasn't a fluctuation. Again, that was the average over the 3 years, which we thought was a good indicator, which is why we averaged those 3 years.
And I understand you average, but if you're averaging suspect data, you're still gonna end up with suspect conclusions.
We're taking the total expenses, again, like, some of those expenses within the caretaking could have transferred over into repair and maintenance, which was discussed.
I might be Mr. Dirksen, but you have to look at this, and you have to say to you that it looks very, very unusual. You
All
would
we
not
can-
admit that?
All we can do is stabilize.
I'm
the-
asking you if you would not
the
admit that
commission.
that looks very unusual. You can tell me you don't think it does look unusual. If that's what you honestly believe, then I'll accept that, but I wanna know what your answer is to that.
All we did was we took the
I
information.
asked you a question, I wanna know, is that look unusual to you, or does it not?
The wages and benefits looks unusual.
I'm talking about any other data as well?
The fact that from 2,000 to 30,000 to 4,000? It appears that there's definitely some major.
Well, even things like, you have another, wage benefits for administration go from 9 to 12 to 3 to 8. Well, that's your average is 8.
That's office.
Oh.
Oh.
I'm saying that, office supplies from over 4,000 to more like 3,000.
Office supplies is 900 to 1,200 to 300.
Office supplies, okay, sorry, I guess, professional fees, okay, I guess that can, if you have certain aspects that they can differ. Insurance, going from, okay, from 18 to 1,000 to over to 2,000.
The only thing I can state.
I'm just saying to you, these things should be more stable, and if you're basing, I think, your conclusions on what looks like data that, I know your principal, your client didn't provide to you, was provided by somebody else, but doesn't it look suspect to you?
It's not consistent.
No, it's very
And-
inconsistent.
But the only thing that we do in these cases is stabilize it. So,
I understand, and you did what you could with what you had,
Yeah, I agree.
but I'm saying to you that I think what you got doesn't look very
Okay.
factual to me. Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll next proceed with 1800 Portage Ave. Is that a sister building?
This is 1780.
1780.
The owner is 1800 Portage LT.
Sorry. What did I do here?
Yeah, it says 1800 for the owner.
Yeah, the owner is 1800 Portage.
Oh, I see.
Okay, same order.
1780, okay.
Same owners.
Good.
All right, roll number 07021707 0001780 Portage Avenue. 2019, April 1/16, reference date 884,000 for the assessment. 1950, actual year built and effective year built. Number of suites 14, 7 outdoor parking spots. Wood or steel frame exterior walls. Page 2, compliance. Page 3 is our income value summary. Average monthly rent per unit, $638.58. With a 53.4 expense ratio, net operating income 48,593, 5.5 cap, estimated market value, again 884,000. Comparables are found on page 4. Again, same comparables. They're actually all a little bit higher than the subject property. On this one, similar in age, breakdown and whatnot. This property does have 3 bachelor suites. 3 of the 4 rent comparables, they got bachelor suites as well. Comparable 3 does not. Page 5 again is our capitalization chart. Page 7 is what was submitted to the department. So if you go to page 12, again, it looks like this place has had some renovations done to it. Kitchen cabinets, bathrooms, windows, so we definitely need to do an inspection on this one as well. Purchased post-reference around the same time. So though I don't have in my brief the breakdown. For this one, they didn't put anything in wages and benefits for 2015 on page 7. The number was found in property management and administration, 28,103. I believe that's the same issue as the last property, falling in that it's the same number. So I don't know if they're double counting or they've got 2 people working at these places nearby for the same amount, but the numbers do seem suspect. So model was used, and inspection is needed on this one as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, this looks like a sister building to the property we just dealt with, so it's probably.
It's similar. It's not like in terms of the number of suites and the composition, it's different, but the same owner purchased it, and it looks like it's being managed as per the rental ad by the same company, so they're connected in that way.
Any questions, the assessor, Mr.?
No questions.
Same question as last time?
Same cap rate question.
Right, okay, we'll accept that.
No more.
Mr. Buss, any questions to the assessor?
Yes. Is it department policy to show post-reference sales in the brief?
No, that was an error. I apologize.
Is there any code that states how many parking spots are supposed to be? I see there's not a parking spot for every suite.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Does that devalue the building at all when there's not a parking spot for every suite? In your opinion?
Depends on the area. Not everybody has a car.
That's all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. McFadden, any questions?
So what you've told us is that because you have some questions about the numbers, you've applied the model to this.
Yeah, the model was applied.
Yeah.
Looks like, I looked it up, looks like it's had some renovations done to it.
Okay.
No changes.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions, thank you. You can proceed, Mr. Newsom.
Thank you. So yeah, this is a very, very similar case to the previous property we just discussed. As was mentioned, the unit breakdown is different. Turning to page 1, you can see a photo of the subject property. We are requesting the assessment be reduced from $884,000 to $557,000. Page 2, you can see a overhead photo of this subject on the corner of Portage and Winston Road. You can flip straight to the back of the brief. Again, our effective gross income of $108,485, which are the actuals, very close to the city's effective gross income of $104,277. There's not much of a discrepancy there. We're using actuals, they're using a model derived income. And then expenses, similar case again. We stabilized over the years 2013 to 15. The best we could with the information that we did have, resulting in the total expenses of $75,092. We take that NOI of $33,393 and apply it to the Altus cap rate study, and we come up with a capitalization rate of 6%. That's based on a 1950 low-rise building, subject is 3 stories, which results in our requested value of $557,000 rounded. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Mr. Maracus, any questions of the applicant?
I guess it's just the same thing in regards to the caretaking expenses, but I've got an explanation for that already. If you go to page 10 of your brief, and I just noticed this, that looks like, 1780 and 1800 quarters, they actually have their expenses listed side by side. And it shows that they're paying the exact same amount for April 15 for the wages and salaries. Would management be included in that number?
I am not aware if management would be included now. They could just be splitting the salaries equally between them. It would be an assumption if we would assume that.
Okay. Again, this place needs to be inspected. So I would just ask that's maintained. I have no further question.
Thank you. Ms. McFadden, do you have any questions?
I have no further question.
Mr. Buss, do you have any questions?
No questions.
I don't either, thank you.
Okay.
My next property is 65 South Park Drive.
Okay. Roll number 0306306933, 65 South Park, Manitoba Housing, Renewal Corporation is the owner. So Res Ave, 3 stories, built in 85, 33 suites, 33 outdoor parking spots. Location, it's off Pembina, north of Markham, on South Park Road. close to the University of Manitoba. Page 2 shows that they've been compliant. No sales history on the property. Page 3 is our breakdown. So what you'll notice with this one was at the board for 2018. What had happened in 2018 was the assessor had made a recommendation via lowering the income quality in our system. So when you look at the calculation on page 3, you'll see that net operating income is reflected, 211,846. However, the 5 1/4 cap, that's not the number that the board went with. The board went with a 5 3/4 cap. And that's what we're asking for. Again, we're not trying to go back against what the board did in 18. We understand that it rolls forward. So if you take that NOI, the 211,846, and divide it by what the board decided on, a 5.75 cap, you get the number that's at the bottom for estimated market value of $3,684,000, which is what we're saying today. So just a quick note to cross off that 5 1/4 as per the Board of Revision's 2018 decision. That decision can be found on page 12 for your confirmation later, as that's what they did, and we're just asking for no change in that regard. If you go to page 4, you'll see our comparables. Comparable 3, looks like it's POTC and NRH. So I would ask the board to disregard that one. At 1076.24, average monthly rent is bracketed by comparables 1, 2, and 4. It's also newer, and its gross floor area is also bracketed by the other 3 comparables. In my opinion, it's in a good location. This was to sell privately, 1985 building, close to the University of Manitoba. In my opinion, would be an attractive location and setup for an investor due to the student turnover coming and going through the area. Area's coming up quite a bit. I was actually down there for the first time for a Bomber game. It's gotten a lot nicer since I went to UM. So, as Manitoba Housing is rankier to income, we're just asking the board follow in line with what their decision was at 2018 and maintain the current 2019 assessment of $3,684,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Before allowing you to ask the questions, I have a question. I want to just get straight. So the last year's decision of our board, was that appealed to the municipal board?
No.
So I can explain that. So we obviously appealed it, 2018 Board of Revision. We did not get, there was some confusion between our contact with the client. Originally we had instructions not to appeal it to the municipal board in 2018. And there was some confusion right around the deadline to appeal it to the municipal board. So it was not appealed, even though.
Okay,
we
because
should
you're
have.
asking us to do right now is to act as an appeal body of our own board. It's like asking a court to appeal some decision, you have to go to a higher court to do that. So if we were to overturn and not agree with the previous hearing that had the same evidence, I'm assuming based on the same assessment, we'd be actually overruling ourselves, which puts us in a really It's puts it up for Boardroom, because I don't know how we can do that.
Every hearing is handled separately, though.
I don't agree. I think that it's based on the same assessment, it's based on the same information that was before the previous board. I mean, I'm only one person here. The other members of this board might not agree with me, and I could get overruled. But I'm just saying that that is what I believe, and I think that it's improper to actually bring a matter back to us to overrule a decision that our board's made, even though it might be a different panel.
We have to, so,
So in other words, what I'm saying is if we were to maintain that position, absolutely you have a right to go to municipal board on this one because your time hasn't run out.
correct, it was all.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, I just expressed, but, okay, go ahead and ask any questions you might have. Because I haven't made a decision yet, I'm just indicating my concerns.
Okay,
Okay,
thank
go
you.
ahead.
I do not have any questions. Oh, sorry, just the cap rate question, which was
Okay.
discussed. And
That's fine. Mr. Buss, any questions of the applicant, of the assessor?
Yeah, just for clarification, on page 3 here, the cap rate, it shows 5.25, and then that's where the 4,035,035 comes from?
That was from the original, the board decision, which can be found at the end. They decided on that NOI, and then what they did is they used a 5 3/4 cap. So if you take that number and you divide it by 5 3/4, you come out with 3,684,000.
Okay, so, and now you're asking us to,
Just maintain the 3,684,000.
so you're asking us to use 5.75% cap rate?
That's what the board went with last time, and that's what we're just asking that they
Okay.
carry forth again.
Okay, is there any consideration given in the valuation anywhere for the fact that this property is Manitoba housing? Or is it just valued the same as every other property?
Well, it has to be market in terms of income. They get subsidies.
Do you think that it affects the value at all that it's Manitoba housing?
I don't think so. I mean, on page 11 of my brief, they took out a $237,000 permit 2009 to redo all the balconies. Places get, these places do get fixed up, and this is only an 85, given the, in my opinion, a really good location. I don't see it being an issue.
Thank you, that's all my questions.
Mr. Van, any questions?
Did you not say earlier, though, that there had been an adjustment made to the, on the condition, on the rents? in your
That was
bylaw?
for the rents.
So.
The income condition, what would have happened is in our system, the income condition controls the level of rent.
Correct,
So by way of lowering the income condition,
right.
it brought the rents down to more what the comparables are saying.
So are the comparables actually Manitoba housing buildings, or are they?
No,
They're
no.
other buildings, but similar condition is what you're telling me?
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Okay, so the condition,
Income condition, not like.
income
physical.
condition is really what
It's
reflects
just
the
the way-
fact that it's a Manitoba housing.
It's just the way of adjusting the rent, and that's what the previous assessor did to bring down
The market rate.
gross potential, yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Brackus, going back to Mr. Buss's question. Technically, I would think that this building, based on all the information we have from the city and all the other apartment buildings, would have a cap rate of 5 1/4 instead of 5 75 if it was in a Manitoba housing building.
5 1/4 is what we put forth last time, the
Well,
board.
5 1/4 would usually be the cap rate on a building that's built in 1985
That is correct.
and et cetera. I mean, so the fact that it's at 5 3/4 already, I think, gives it some, there is some recognition of it being a Manitoba housing building.
That's what the board did last time, so we're just asking
Yeah,
them to
okay.
continue with that.
If it was sold privately to a third party and not operated as a Manitoba housing building, would the cap rate be returned to 5 1/4? on this cycle.
It was based on the decision,
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
but the ownership, I mean, that wasn't indicated in the order.
No, it isn't, but I think that it must be, well, I can't
can't
assume
speak
why,
for what they
I
said
can't assume
last
why
time.
they made a decision, but it appears to me that, you don't see 5.75% cap rates very often on 1985 buildings that are in that location.
No, you don't. I don't know why they made that decision, but we're respecting their decision. And
That's fine.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you. Okay, you can go forward with your evidence.
Thank you. 65 South Park Drive, turning to page 1. There is an error in our brief here. The 2019 realty assessment that we have noted there of $4,619,000. As Mr. Baracus mentioned already, that was the original 2018 assessment. That was not the reduced assessment, so we are dealing with the forward revised realty assessment of $3,684,000, which should be in that spot there. So we're requesting it get reduced from $3,684,000 to $2,437,000, which was our original request in 2018 as well. As I mentioned, there was some confusion around the municipal board deadline, which is the reason why it wasn't appealed to the municipal board at that time,
That's fine.
which is why it's getting re-appealed to the board of revision. Turning to page 2, you see the location of the subject property on South Park, just west of Pembina Highway. Turning over to page 4, the income approach, it is a subsidized housing, so we can't rely on the actual income of the property, which is why we look to market rents. We looked at 5 properties in this case, which indicated an average rent of $904 for a 2-bedroom and $1,034 for a 3-bedroom. We feel these are all good comparables to the subject property, considering location and condition. Applying these market rents to the subject, the potential gross income is $381,384. For vacancy, we're accepting the assessor's vacancy rate, or vacancy and collection loss rate of 2.8%. Expenses in this case, we can flip back and forth here. If we flip to the last page of the brief, page 24, while we can't rely on the income on subsidized housing, we feel we can still rely on the expenses, which would be, despite it being subsidized, we feel the expenses would still be reflective of market, which is why we're using the actual expenses in this case. We have stabilized expenses between the years 2013 and 2015, which came to a total expense of $214,150. The resulting net operating income is $164,514. In comparison to the assessment department's net operating income of $211,846. Again, on our last page of the brief, the city assessment parameters are adjusted, are not exactly what is shown here. This shows the original assessment. We're appealing the board of revision revised assessment. So the cap rate we apply is a 6 3/4%. We feel we do need more of a premium for Manitoba housing and similar type properties. And we feel that there is a further adjustment required to reflect the risk. So with that cap rate, the cap rate we would typically be applying to a property 1985 low rise is 5 3/4. We are applying a 1% premium for that reason, resulting in our requested value of $2,437,000. If we turn back to page 5, just a little bit of an explanation here on why we feel a further adjustment is required for these types of low-income housing, or subsidized housing. We feel there's an added risk of no property-specific reserve fund, which is typical of non-profit properties. Typically budget housing it's low-income tenancy. There are a couple municipal board decisions which we refer to, which are included in the appendix, which dealt with this issue on the premium for low-income housing. So, just to, we request the board reduce the assessed value to $2,437,000.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Barakas, any questions?
Yeah. For the income on page 4, the effective gross income, there's some market rents. Would you know what the gross floor area per suite is? Is these comparables, would you know if they're bigger suites or smaller suites than the subject?
I do not know.
Would the size of the suite have an effect on the amount of rent they could charge?
We looked for similar units, so as far as I know, these are similar size, but I can't confirm that, and the size would.
You mentioned adding a premium on the cap and some municipal board decisions. Took a peek on page, begins on page 13. Says, before, in the matter of appeal, section 56.2, municipal assessment act. And you go to the bottom of that paragraph. This was in regards to 330 and 331 Blake, which is Blake Gardens. Is that correct? Well, that would be considered a much more rough area than near the University of Manitoba, would it not?
We're dealing with the issue, not these, the issue in this case, which is a premium for property tax.
I guess you can answer the question though, I mean, and say that, is it a rougher area or is it not?
It would be in a rougher area. Yeah, just to further on that, just to clarify, it's not a locational adjustment. It was
But like the tendency that would be, I mean, there's issues that go along with Blake Gardens that presumably don't go along with somewhere that's off Pembina, South Pembina Highway, like.
likely, and I think that was probably addressed in another issue as well, or another topic.
For the no property specific reserve fund, is it not true that they get their money from the government and there's an amount allocated globally to Manitoba Housing, then they can divvy it up as required?
I'm not aware of how that system works.
Do you think this is a good location for an apartment?
Proximity to the University of Manitoba, as you've mentioned a few times, is a good location. Yeah. I wouldn't say it was a bad location.
Okay. Those are my questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bass, any questions of the applicant?
Yes, on page 21 of your brief, the board doesn't actually say they're changing the capitalization rate because this is a Manitoba Housing property.
Page 21.
Page 21, I believe, final. The board is explaining their decision. It says that, where was I here, comparable? It says capitalization rate will fall somewhere in between because neither party presented compelling evidence towards their capitalization rate. It doesn't say.
Oh, this is not his brief, sorry. This is the appellant's brief,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. It doesn't really explain that they're adjusting the rate because it is a Manitoba housing. Would you agree with that?
I would agree, they're just stating that it is an increase, but yeah, I would agree.
Okay. Did you inspect this property?
I did not inspect this property.
And as to risk, you said the capitalization rate should be changed because of risk. Could you explain that risk better? In terms of, I don't think there's ever a shortage of tenants for these Manitoba housing. And
Just the
what
added
would the
risk,
be?
just I can't speak specifically to this property, just the typical condition or level of finish of these types of properties. It's typically budget housing, so the finish level, again, lower income tenancy just speaks to the condition.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Smith, I have many questions of you.
I have no questions.
So, the location close to the University of Manitoba, I understand that there's actually a housing crunch close to the University of Manitoba. Are you aware of that?
Housing crunch.
Yeah, it's difficult, the students have difficulty finding accommodation.
I'm not aware that there was a shortage of housing.
And if this property were taken over by another owner, do you think they'd have difficulty renting the suites out?
I think there would be significant, were renovations required to, potentially required to, you mean if it was no longer a subsidized housing?
Yeah.
If you were to adjust that?
Yeah.
I think there would be work required to get it to that state, but
Okay.
at that point, I can't speak to if there are other issues.
And what about if it was just converted to budget student housing?
I couldn't speak.
And would you agree that if a charitable organization owns a property, or a government agency for that matter, the fact that they are subsidizing the potential income should not reflect the value of the assessment? In other words, their charity shouldn't be the charity of the taxpayer in the city?
Okay,
Would you agree with that?
so Manitoba Housing's charity shouldn't be the city, is that what you're saying?
I'm saying a charitable organization might choose to use that property in a way that will not bring in the potential income that it would otherwise bring in. But should that affect the assessment? If they decide to be charitable, should they force their charity upon the taxpayer of the city by decreasing basically the tax base, by lowering the assessment on that property?
I feel it should be assessed fairly according to market.
Okay.
That's my only comment.
Okay, thank you.
Can we just run to the washroom for a second?
We'll have a break between this and the next matter then.
Okay.
Okay, we can. Okay, Mr. Brackett, so next to 2339 Devon Highway.
Roll number 0306291920 to 339 Pembina Highway. Total assessed value $6,241,000. Built in 1973. It's got 50 suites, 50 outdoor parking stalls. Construction class D, wood or steel frame exterior walls. If you look at page 2, you'll see that they have been compliant and the mailers. Page 3 here, that's the breakdown, so you'll see that there's 2 streams. There's the 10G stream and the 20G stream. What it is some of them, it's a mixture of townhouses and apartments on this property. So 10G would be the units that are located, it's in buildings that contain either 4 units or less or 5 units or less. That's just the distinction.
Okay.
There's
Oh,
no
I see.
class thing, it's just the number of units in the, there's multiple buildings on the property.
So 5 or more would be the 20G then?
I believe so, yeah. That's 4 or 5, there's a distinction. So the same average monthly rent has been applied across the board. Same expense ratios regardless. That's, the distinction is just based on unit amount. With a 5 1/4 cap, based on age. You add the 2 streams up and you get your estimated market value of $6,241,000. It was at the board last time in 2018. Manitoba Housing appealed. Nobody showed up. I think Chris could probably speak to this more than myself, but I think that was right at the beginning of the cycle, beginning of October. They didn't have representation hatched out yet, so it wasn't like Altus didn't show up or anything. Just, I don't think the deal wasn't done. Chris could probably clarify that more, but that's just the decision at the end on page 11. So no change was made because there was no appearance from the applicant. Page 4, they show the rent comparables. The average monthly rent of $1,181 was bracketed by the comparables that are in the area. They're similar in age, total number of units, and unit composition. They're also bracketed on a gross floor area per unit as well. So, again, Manitoba Housing, we went with model. The mailer is found on page 7 to page 10. However, consideration as a not-for-profit model was used as the rent was supported. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of the applicant, Mr. Gibson? I mean, of the assessor, Mr. Gibson?
Just the cap rate market evidence question asked and answered. Thank you.
Mr. Button, any questions of the assessor?
I have no questions.
Mr. Bush, do you have any questions?
Yes, is this a good location? We had talked earlier on the last property about by the university, it's good location. Is this a good location for an apartment building?
It's near the University of Manitoba, so it would be, similar concepts would apply.
So, yes.
Yes, yes.
How about the fact that there's 4-bedroom units in an average apartment building today? There wouldn't be 4-bedroom units, would there?
No, those are townhouse units.
Oh, I see. Okay. That's all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And the capitalization rate you're using here is 5.25%?
Yes, that's what,
That's what the model shows?
yeah, Puck that Res app, it gets 5.25.
And are these properties being Manitoba Housing renewal properties, are they the same caliber of other properties that aren't Manitoba Housing renewal, where a 5.25% cap rate would currently be used for?
Yes, there's no distinction for the Manitoba housing.
I'm just saying, do you know if they're on par with what's available in the rental market?
I have not physically inspected the place, so I can't tell you what the actual condition is, but for the age, Puck that Res app, it gets 5.25.
Okay,
Supplementary question after you.
okay, that's fine, I'm done. Mr. Fadden has another question.
So, the last Manitoba Housing one we looked at, the city had made an adjustment in the income.
There was an adjustment in the income
Has
based
this
on the
been,
comparables.
has that been done in this building?
No, this is just.
So
for
this
the
building
model.
is actually a higher, based on a higher condition in the model?
Well,
Like
it's-
better condition?
The monthly rent was compared to other properties in the area, which had, if you look at page 4, we do our rent search first. So if these properties were indicating that there should be a reduction in the rent, looking at their year build, how they compare in terms of on a unit composition manner and gross floor area, then I would have made an adjustment. But it doesn't look like, in my opinion, that it's warranted.
Okay, thank you.
Comparable number 2 is out of the area. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's Lakewood and Fermor, so that one is further away.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, Mr. Dixon, you can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2339 Covenant Highway. Page 1, you can see a street view of the property. We are requesting the 2019 realty assessment be reduced to $4,854,000. And to speak to the 2018 appeal, which was recommended by, or which was mentioned by Matthew. Yes, we did receive that.
There's no appearance, no decision was made on the basis of the merits of the case, so I don't think that's.
Correct. We were notified of it actually the day of the.
That's fine, I consider this, this is a much different distinction than what I indicated as a concern on the last one.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Yep.
So turning to page 2, you can see the location on Covenant Highway, north of Bison Drive and south of Markham Road. The improvement is a 2-story townhouse complex built in 1973. We can flip straight to the back of the brief, page 20. We have no contention with the city's parameters referring to the net operating income. We accept their net operating income, so the only issue here is the capitalization rate. Same as the last property, we are applying a 1% premium for the increased risk of this type of property. So if we take this property's year built of 1973, low-rise Altus cap rate study indicates an appropriate cap rate of 5.75%. If we apply the 1% premium due to the increased risk, we get a 6.75% cap rate, which concludes to a final indicated market value of $4,854,000 rounded. And that concludes our presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Radcliffe, any questions?
I guess this is mostly cap, my questions about the cap premium applied to the last property, just flow through to this one, and I believe Chris has addressed them in terms of the overall location.
Well, you're arguing it now, so I think if you have any questions, you can ask them. If you want to make a summation, I'll let you do that.
I would just be repeating my questions from last time around, so
Okay, that's
I
fine.
won't do that.
That's fine.
That's it.
Ms. Van, any questions of the?
I have no further questions.
Mr. Best, do you have any questions?
Yes, so that 1% premium doesn't vary throughout the city, that's flat rate?
So that 1% premium is what Altus applies to all subsidized housing. for this type of property across the city. That's just the premium that Altus is bringing us.
Would you agree that this is a good location
Similar,
for multifamily?
similar to the last discussion, in terms of proximity to the university. Again, that's not a locational adjustment we're applying, that's just our adjustment for the type of housing.
No, the 1%, yes, no, that was the other question, but this question is whether this is a good location for a multifamily property.
Yes, we do have other adjustments locationally as well, which are not applied here.
That's all my questions.
I don't have any questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So this property is 132 Merrington Road, or is it Marrington? Road.
All right, 132 Marrington Road, roll number 03091189-100. Assessed value $10,077,000. Res app, 1998 building, 59 suites, 58 indoor parking stalls, 16 outdoor parking stalls. Location west of Pembina, roughly the corner of Kirkbridge and Hill Martin. I made a recommendation on this property to reduce the assessment to $9,096,000. If you go to page 3, you'll see the workup. Essentially, what I did was, if you go to page 4, you'll see the comparables. Initially, the income quality and the income being assigned to this property was too high as per comparable properties. So doing an analysis, I was looking again at effective year built, suite composition, gross floor area per unit, looking at the comparables. Comparables range year built wise from 1972 to 2008. So our subject property falls above 3 of the 4 comparables in the year build distribution. Its breakdown per bedroom falls in line with mostly comparable number 3 in terms of having a couple 1 bedrooms and mostly 2 bedrooms. A gross floor area per unit, it's larger on a gross floor area per unit basis than 3 of the 4. So when I was doing this and I was trying to figure out what to drop the rent to, essentially I tried to find pictures of the properties online. I included a couple pictures of the subject property, what I could find at the back of the brief. Only could find a few. So if you go to page 15 to the end, you'll be able to see that the property looks to be in good condition, but it's not, it doesn't have granite, it's not anything lavish or highly upgraded, but it looks like it's been well maintained. Taking that into consideration, the year built and the previous metrics I mentioned, I felt that it was appropriate to, knowing what the highest property is like quality-wise, 65 Paget, it should be lower than that. 2141 Pembina had pictures online that were most highly similar to that of the subject property. While it did have a higher percentage of 2-bedroom units compared to the subject property is larger on a gross floor area per unit basis and is 9 years newer. Taking that all into consideration, I took the rent for comparable number 3 and then applied that to the subject property in making my decision. So that flows through on page 3, changing, the effective gross income. So you have the expense ratio acting on a smaller EGI with a 5% cap, as it is in 1998. You get the recommendation of $9,096,000. That's my presentation, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Just cap rate asked and answered, no further questions.
Okay. Mrs. Fadden, any questions for the
I have
assessor?
no further question.
Mr. Buss, do you have any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so on this one, I see the city's using a 5% cap, which is the lowest cap available. So would this property, in your mind, rank with the top similar type of, or apartment type of buildings in the city of Winnipeg?
As per our model, 98 and later gets a 5% cap. If it was 97, the model would have given a 5.25 cap. It's a 98.
So
It
missed the
it gets a
5.25 by 1 year.
Just over the goal line.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good comment. Thank you. You can proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
132 Martin Road, page number 1, shows a photo of the subject property. We are requesting the assessment be reduced to $7,520,000. Turning to page 2, location of the subject property on the corner of Marrington and Kirkridge Drive, just west of Pembina Highway in the Richmond West neighborhood. From there, I'll ask you to flip straight to the last page again. In this case, we felt the rents were not, the actual rents were not market. So we have applied rents according to CMHC. We are applying a rate of $1,080 per suite, which brings us to a total rent of $752,106 and an effective gross income of $753,977. As far as expenses, we've stabilized, we didn't have the 2014 information, so we've stabilized between 2013 and 15, resulting in a total expenses of $321,565, very close to Matthew's recommendation in terms of expenses of $323,847. So our NOI results in $432,402, capitalized at 5.75%, which is what the Altus cap rate study indicates for a 1998 building, 1998 low-rise building. Applying that cap rate results in a market value of $7,520,212, average to our recommendation of $7,520,000. And that concludes my presentation.
Mr. Brackis, any questions?
Were there the CMHC calculations anywhere in your report?
Unfortunately, those were not included in the report. I have a printout of it here, but they weren't included in the report.
Okay.
The rental rate applied was $1,080 per seat.
1,080, but just CMHC, but no comparables or anything, correct?
Correct.
And just for the cap, 5 3/4. Just to confirm, that's higher than all of the cap rate comparables other than 26/45 Hargrave in terms of calculated cap rate?
In our cap rate study,
Yeah,
higher than all of them except for,
the property on Hargrave.
correct.
Those are all my questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. West, any questions of the applicant?
Yes, where did you get your rents from?
Those rents were, we do not rely on the actual rents. In this case, we rely on CMHC market rents. So we should have included that in the brief, but they're not included. But it takes CMHC recommended rates for 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom, which the average applied rate was 1,080 per suite, which is what we applied to the property.
Okay. Okay, and the cap rate. That's all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I have no further
Any questions?
questions.
I don't either.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.